So I know the transfer window technically hasn't closed yet. It actually closed at 11:59 p.m. Central Time and 9:59 p.m. my time, and right now it's 9:29. So the transfer window, of course, will be closing in about half hours, which means that, there still could be a chance of some big move that happen, and if there is going to be some big move happening in these last half hour, of course, we'll talk about in tomorrow's News of the Week video. But this video, I just want to talk about all the moves that has happened in these last 4 days. There's an article on MLSsoccer.com. Well, actually, it's not even an article. It's kind of like a transfer deadline kind of. It shows like the list of transfer that has happened in the last 4 days, and what I did is I basically just kind of put down everything on my notebook. I originally wanted to do it on the board, but there was so much thing on that article and so much move that happened on that timeline that it just didn't fit on the board. So instead of me, of course, doing it on the board, I basically put all of those notes on my notebook, and I'm just gonna kind of read it off in my notebook. So this article all started back on Thursday, and as I mentioned, this is going to be the last 4 days that has happened with all these kind of deals, and 4 days leading up to the transfer deadline, which is today. So first of all, on Thursday at 1:48 p.m., and this is all of these times is going to be on Eastern time, but right about 1:48, TFC, they were in negotiation with Omar Gonzalez. Now this move, we have heard some rumor even before when they announced that they were interested of getting Omar Gonzalez, and I think since TFC is #1 in terms of the allocation order, and for those of you that don't know what the allocation order is, it's basically an order where teams have the right to get a player that used to play from MLS, but they play somewhere else, and when they, of course, want to come back, then the team that has the first rights in terms of getting that player is going to be the top team in the allocation order, and I believe TFC were #1 in terms of that spot. So they were looking to bring Omar Gonzalez back to MLS. Obviously, Omar Gonzalez played with the Galaxy a couple of years ago before spending his time with Pachuca, and now I think with Atlas. But then on Thursday, also about an hour later at 2:43 p.m., the Galaxy, speaking of which, they were nearing a loan deal for Argentine attacker Fabio Alvarez. And then at 5:30 p.m., the Galaxy actually collected 325,000 TAM from Minnesota in exchange for 225,000 in GAM. So it's clear that they really need some TAM in terms of signing this player, and you're going to hear later in the video that they continue to try to pretty much ask other teams to give them some target allocation money in exchange for general allocation money so that they can get this player. And then, of course, on Friday, May 3rd, at 11:02 a.m., we got our first big move that happened in the last 4 days leading up to the transfer deadline. Francesco Calvo, of course, has been traded to the Chicago Fire in exchange for 400,000 allocation money. So obviously Calvo, he kind of felt out of favor of Minnesota after he got sent off against TFC, and that Minnesota, they didn't play him, and it seemed like whenever they didn't play him, they looked so much better in the defense, and something tells me Calvo might be traded, and that he might be of course, another team will try to get him for his service, and that's what the Chicago Fire has done. And tomorrow I also will talk a little bit about Francesco Calvo, of how he actually had a bit of a troubling relationship with his former club Minnesota, especially with the current manager of Minnesota, that is Adrian Heath. And then at about a couple of hours later, DC United also made a move. They acquired Marquinhos Pedroso from FC Dallas off of waiver. They also traded their 2020 MLS Super Draft first round pick to Dallas in exchange for 100,000 GAM. So basically they claimed Marquinhos Pedroso off waiver, but the whole deal of them getting general allocation money, that's just a separate kind of deal. But this deal, it's been rumored for the last couple of days, even before this news was announced, that DC United, they were looking for a left back. They were a little bit short in that position, so that's why they decided to get Marquinhos Pedroso from FC Dallas. And then on May 3rd, at 4:15 p.m. The Galaxy, they acquired 300,000 TAM from Columbus while giving up 225,000 GAM. So again, like I said, the Galaxy, they were basically giving their general allocation money away to get target allocation money so that they can have enough in order to get Fabio Alvarez, which they were very heavily interested in. At this point, the deal was getting very close, but they just want some extra target allocation money so that they can make sure that this deal went through. And then on Friday, May 3rd at 8:01 p.m., the Portland Timbers actually traded David Guzman to the Columbus Crew. And, you know, this rumor of David Guzman going to Columbus and reunited Caleb Porter was only a couple of days ago. Like, this rumor was very fresh, and that there wasn't really a lot of fire into it. And then literally on this day and literally at this time, the deal is done. I mean, Guzman, of course, has been sent to Columbus and sent to Columbus to reunite Caleb Porter. And I'm guessing one of the reasons why the Timbers want to get rid of Guzman is because they want to free up an international spot. There's been a lot of rumor talk about how they were going to get Nikitska, striker Brian Fernandez from Liga MX, but because of the fact that they don't have an international spot available, and that the only way that they can maybe get an international spot is give up maybe a little bit of TAM or a little bit GAM to other teams in order to acquire an international spot. Well, they basically did it the other way, and that, of course, is just sacrifice one of their player. And, you know, David Guzman, I think it is going to be a bit of a loss for them. I mean, he was very decent in that holding midfield for the Timbers, but it's clear that they need that international spot so that they can secure Brian Fernandez, which would later turns out to be their DP4, which I, of course, will talk about in just a bit. But then on Saturday, or is it Saturday? No, it's on Sunday, May 5th, on Cinco de Mayo at 5:21 p.m. The Portland Timber, of course, near the finish line of acquiring Nikitska, striker Brian Fernandez. And then on Monday, May 6, 11:13 a.m. Columbus, of course, officially acquired David Guzman. So, actually, before what I said about Friday, May 3rd, that was actually just a bit of a rumor that he is going to go to Columbus. And on May 6th, it was official that they have signed David Guzman, and that the Crew, of course, will give up an international spot to the Portland Timbers in order to of course, gets him. And I think it's a decent signing. I mean, David Guzman, he was very decent with the Portland Timbers. He can, of course, help out that midfield of Columbus. Although one thing that I feel like Columbus probably should have done in this transfer window is that they need another fullback, and that maybe they could have got Paredes so as one of their fullbacks, considering the fact that, you know, both of their starting fullbacks are out with a long-term injury, and some of the fullbacks that they had, like Waylon Francis, for example, hasn't really made a big impact to the team, and that they just put up a random fullback in place of Harrison Affle on the other side. So I thought maybe they could have got Paredes, and maybe get another experienced fullback in there so that they don't really have to go in the bench and put in an inexperienced kind of fullback. So that's kind of an interesting thing to see. And then, of course, at 2 p.m. May 6th, Portland Timbers officially acquired Brian Fernandez as a DP for a club record of $10 to $12 million fee. Wow, that is a very high price to pay that the Timbers had. But I guess, you know, I feel like with Liga MX's team now, they obviously are reluctant to give up some of their players, especially to probably the rival kind of league that known as MLS, and that, you know, Brian Fernandez, he was, I believe, the top 4 goal scorer. He was the fourth best goal scorer in the league. And it seemed like Nikitsa was very reluctant to give him up, and especially Nikitsa was about to go into the playoffs. You know, they really want to hold on to Brian Fernandez until of course the playoffs is over, and then maybe they potentially will sell him. But that, of course, did not happen. The Timbers, of course, acquiring him. Now, one other interesting thing about this whole deal is that whether or not when Brian Fernandez plays for the Portland Timbers, does he play with the Timber immediately, or the fact that he has to first serve this 2-game suspension that he has with Nikita, and that, we'll see how MLS will do in terms of that. I mean, usually when you have a guy that is suspended and then you move into another league, depend on what league it is, and it depend on the general rule of FIFA. The other league, they don't really need to say that, well, you have a suspension in the another league, but once you come to here via transfer, you don't really need to serve that suspension anymore. That, of course, is not true for every single league. Every league has kind of a rule in terms of that, and I wonder, like, I haven't seen before where a guy transferred to MLS and that they're carrying their suspension as they head into MLS. So this could be a very interesting situation with Brian Fernandez, and whether or not is he going to first serve his 2-game suspension that he has when he was back in Nikita. And the other thing that I will also say about Brian Fernandez is that he is kind of, I wouldn't say he's kind of a player that has a kind of troublemaker kind of mentality. I mean, earlier in his career, I believe he was actually caught with cocaine, and that he was suspended because of that. But that was back when it was very early in his career, and that he was only like around 18 to 19. And ever since then, he's been mature a little bit better and has more maturity going forward. But still, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. The fact that, yes, he has in the past being kind of a guy that has disciplinary issue, and that hopefully when he, of course, play with the Timbers, he does not do anything stupid. The fact that he's going to get himself suspended, or don't do what Fernando Adi did a couple of weeks ago, where you just decided to drive drunk either in Columbus or even down in Portland or even in Cincinnati to just get yourself a DUI, and that you have to complete the league drug abuse assessment before you can get back to your team. So yeah, that is something that the Timbers going to have to closely monitor in terms of that. But meanwhile, moving on into Monday, May 6th at 5:50 p.m. Omar Gonzalez, who, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, there was rumor that he might come back to MLS and that TFC is going to get him. Well, it turns out that rumor is pretty much dead after this news. The fact that he is not going to be returning to MLS, according to multiple Liga MX sources. So for TFC, that's got to be a little bit disappointing, considering the fact that they definitely need a center back in terms of anchoring their defense. I mean, I feel like for TFC, there's still 2 areas that I think they need if they want to be considered one of the contending team for MLS Cup this year. I mean, this TFC team from this season, it's clear that they are definitely a very talented team, and a team that looked like won the MLS Cup a couple of years ago. But there's still gaps in that team, and one of the gap is in that defensive end, where it has shown in the past couple of games that it's been very weak, and also on the attacking end too, where once Josie Altidore is not going to be in this team, they don't really have any quality and any goal scorer that can of course put the ball in the back of the net. So I'm pretty sure TFC fans will be very disappointing the fact that they didn't sign him. But moving on, at about 6:55 p.m., about an hour after the news talked about how Omar Gonzalez is staying in Mexico, DC United, they were actually looking to bring back Yamil Asad back to MLS. So Yamil Asad actually left DC United and actually went on loan to one of the club in Argentina. But it seemed like DC want him back because, this DC team this season has shown that they can be very decent on the attack. Lately, they have definitely have a little bit trouble in terms of going forward. And that Yamil Asad last season, he alongside with guys like Lucho Acosta, Wayne Rooney, and Paul Arriola, Yamil Asad, a lot of people forgot that he was also a big kind of, he was a big component in that lethal kind of DC United attack from last year. So they obviously want him to be back and want to recall him back on loan, but it seemed like that most likely will not happen because I haven't heard any news. The fact that they will recall him for loan. And remember, once this transfer window shut, like most transfer window around the world, once it's shut, that means you cannot make a move after that. So most likely this rumor is probably going to be dead by tomorrow's morning. And then right about 7 o'clock and 5 minutes after this news, DC United was also in the news too, and they were actually looking to extend Lucho Acosta. That will be worth extend Lucho Acosta contract that will be worth more than $3 million per year. So I'm guessing most likely they are going to kind of make him a DP player, although to be fair, I think he's already a designated player for DC United. But yeah, they're giving him a lot of money, knowing the fact that there is a big there's a big reality that potentially they are going to lose him in the summer. Obviously, Acosta contract ends after this year, and that in the summer transfer window, clubs can come calling for Lucho Acosta because of the fact that his contract is about to end. And if the club decided to get Lucho Acosta, then DC United will basically sold him for nothing. And I'm pretty sure DC United would, the last thing DC United wants is that they would sell Lucho Acosta for absolutely free, and that they are just very desperate right now in terms of extending his contract. But that being said, unlike many of these kind of transfer that is going on, Lucho Acosta and DC United, in terms of this contract situation, this can still be resolved after the transfer window. And as I mentioned, in terms of the transfer window, it's as long as you are, of course, not signing player from another team and then they immediately join them, then everything else is fine. You can still basically re-sign or even do a contract extension to some of the players that you want to do contract extension. So yeah, we'll see how this news will continue to rumble on as we get closer into the summer transfer window. And then on Tuesday, which is deadline day today at 11:30 a.m., Chicago and Nashville are interested to get Mexican international goalkeeper Guillermo Ochoa. Ochoa, of course, is currently playing in Belgium. I believe he's playing with Standard Liège, and I think this rumor most likely has been kind of dead right now because I haven't heard a lot about the fact that either Chicago and Nashville is interested in getting him. Nashville is going to be kind of interesting because, Nashville, they don't come into the league, I believe, until 2020. And even if they get Guillermo Ochoa, that means that he's going to have to join USL. And for a goalkeeper that is a regular in the Mexican international team, it's kind of weird seeing that kind of caliber of player play in the second division of American soccer, and the fact that Mexico is one of the most respectable and one of the powerhouse team in the CONCACAF region. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see if Nashville in the future, of course, would eventually think about getting him. And it's also interesting the fact that Chicago is thinking about getting Guillermo Ochoa, because something tells me if that's what their interest of getting him, something tells me that they're still having a goalkeeper situation. And, I don't think David Ousted has been that bad this year. I mean, he was okay when he was with DC, but he wasn't, he was right on the borderline of being kind of mediocre and just being a terrible goalkeeper. And I thought this season, he looked okay at times and looked bad at times. So he's kind of like a pretty mediocre kind of goalkeeper. So I'm guessing Chicago Fire, they want to get a goalkeeper that is not mediocre. Although keep in mind, Guillermo Ochoa, he's 33 years old right now. So if he comes to MLS in the future, hopefully when teams eventually think about signing Guillermo Ochoa, it's not going to be like the Tim Howard situation where, remember the Rapids decided to make Tim Howard a DP kind of signing, and Tim Howard was already around 36 and 37 and way past his prime. And then a couple of years later, you could see what happened where Tim Howard just gets completely kind of washed up, and now that the Rapids are still making him a DP player, and it's kind of embarrassing, the fact that they're still making him a DP player, even though he is probably one of the worst player on that team, and right now looking like one of the worst goalkeeper in the league right now. But Moving on, at around noon, the Seattle Sounders are looking to acquire Ecuadorian defender Xavier Arrega. I haven't heard anything about this news, so most likely this deal could be dead by the end of the transfer window. And at about 1:30 p.m., Atlanta United actually were looking to get Justin Meram from the Columbus Crew with a package of allocation money and a draft pick. And then get this, at around 2:40, or not 2:40, but around 5:15 p.m. After originally this Justin Meram kind of rumor of the fact that Atlanta is gonna get him, they basically signed him, and that they basically gave Columbus $100,000 GAM and also a second round pick in the 2020 MLS Super Draft. And I gotta say, that is definitely not a lot for Justin Meram, considering the fact that Columbus last year, they got him back from Orlando and they got him for like $1 million or something like that, and that now they are selling him again, and this time they're only getting like peanuts amount of general allocation money and only getting a second round draft pick heading into next year. Yeah, that, if you're a Columbus fan, you'll be very frustrated. The fact that it feels like you basically gave up or taken a little bit too small amount of money and able to give up Justin Meram. And, Justin Meram, in the last couple of years, in the last year or so, he definitely has not looked like the same player that he was when he was with Columbus back in 2017 and back in 2016 when that was the Columbus team that was under Greg Berhalter, and that he looked like one of the best midfielder in the league. Now he just looked like old, and just it's almost as if in these next couple of years he might not be able to find a spot in an MLS team. And it's interesting that Atlanta United decided to pick him up. I'm guessing they want more depth in terms of that holding midfielder and also in that wing spot, and that since Barco, of course, is now on international duty, does that mean that most likely they're going to put Justin Meram there in the wing area? I mean, if that's the case, that would definitely be very interesting to see. But going back at around 1:40 p.m., Jonathan Lewis was set to be acquired by the Colorado Rapids. Now, when I read this, they said he was set to be acquired. There hasn't been any news that it's made official that Colorado has acquired Jonathan Lewis. And, if I'm Jonathan Lewis, yeah, I feel sorry for that kid, because this is a kid that he was looking to be one of the most promising striker in MLS, and that when he was with NYCFC, you can see the talent that he has, but he just never got into the team because I'm guessing maybe both Patrick Vieira and Doma Torrent doesn't really like the way that he plays, and he, of course, doesn't get to the team. And now he gets the exile to the Colorado Rapids, which is pretty much which basically is equivalent of you getting sent to Siberia and basically just kind of like spend your rest of the time in isolation. I mean, yeah, I feel sorry for Jonathan Lewis, and Colorado is just a place that is just, no offense to the Rapids and Rapids fans, but Colorado is really a place where career just pretty much gets ruined. Like we saw with Kellen Acosta when he went to Colorado, and how before Kellen Acosta was considered the next big midfielder in the U.S. men's national team, nowadays he does not look anything like what he was so good earlier in the first couple of years in Dallas. And that all this talk about him going to Europe, yeah, that most likely is not going to be the case with the way that he's been playing. And you also have a lot of kind of like ex kind of player like Kai Kamara, Benny Feilhaber, all these guys that was good in their prime, and then once they go to Colorado, their career basically is ruined. Although Kai Kamara is still kind of doing his thing with the Rapids, the rest, they are just kind of look old and look like they're ready to basically retire from their playing career. So hopefully this deal for Jonathan Lewis and for his talent's sake, do not join Colorado. You're probably going to get your career ruined. And if he does join Colorado, does that mean he play next to Kai Kamara? Because Colorado, they run a 4-4-2 system. They, of course, put two striker up front, so I'm guessing maybe it's Lewis and Kai Kamara playing up front, which is not a bad combination going forward. But again, Colorado, they're dead last in the league. They're the only team that is winless right now in the league. It's not going to be a good feeling if he decided to join the Rapids, and that is the way to kind of excel his career and get back to the U.S. men's national team. But next up, at 2:35 p.m., about an hour after the Jonathan Lewis kind of rumor, New England were looking to acquire Standard League winger Paul Jose Mpoku, I think that's how you pronounce, as a DP, although there has now been reports say that Mpoku do not want to go to New England, which I don't blame Mpoku of not going to New England. Like, New England, just like Colorado, is just... It's a dumpster fire place to go to play if you want to, of course, come to MLS. Like, New England, with so much things that's gone wrong with this team, and the fact that the owner, of course, are being cheap, and that it feels like nobody really cares about this team and how much this team has fallen to being a good team back in the MLS 1.0 era, but now just kind of stuck in that MLS 1.0 mentality, and that the league just completely flow by him. Yeah, I don't blame him to not go to New England. I mean, imagine just playing in going to MLS, knowing that MLS is a growing league, and you're very excited about that, until you realize you're going to New England, which is one of the places that it seemed like a team is still stuck in MLS 1.0 era, and a team that draw very few fans in the stadium, and it's just a sad kind of team to be joining. So I don't blame Mpoku of staying in Europe and staying in Belgium instead of going to probably one of the joke of the league that is the New England Revolution. And then on Tuesday, May 4, 2:40 p.m., this was right after, 5 minutes after the original rumor about New England looking to sign a DP. But Sam Stejsko, which is one of the MLS writer, confirmed that Seattle Sounders are going to reacquiring Jovan Jones, and this is definitely great news for the Seattle Sounders, because Jovan Jones, he was an absolute beast in that fullback position when they got him a couple of years ago, and now that he is coming back into the Seattle Sounders, he's going to help a lot in terms of that fullback position. Now, because he is a fullback, that means that, you know, most likely with them getting Jovan Jones, something tells me that most likely they are not going to think about signing Brad Smith, who, remember, he's on loan with Bournemouth right now, and most likely after the summer transfer window open, his loan basically expires in the summer, so most likely he might be shipped back to England and shipped back to Bournemouth, and that Jovan Jones will be the guy that is going to be taking his position, which is not a bad exchange for the Seattle Sounders, considering the fact that, like I said, Jovan Jones, when he was with the Sounders a couple of years ago, he was an absolute beast, and was considered one of the best fullback in the league. So this was definitely going to be a good signing for the Sounders. And then finally, to finish it off, the Galaxy, of course, they have acquired Argentine Fabio Alvarez on loan from Atletico Tucumán, and that happened at 3:55 p.m. Eastern Time. So, you know, this, of course, is something that I mentioned in the beginning of the video, how they want to get this guy, and they basically are acquiring target allocation money they get enough TAM money so that they can sign this guy on loan, and on Tuesday, they have officially signed him. And this signing is more to do with the fact that knowing that they will not have Roman Alessandrini for a long time now, and that he won't be back until September. Most likely, Alvarez will be another option that they can use on the attack and kind of play in that same role that Roman Alessandrini can play until Alessandrini does get back into this team. And because this is a loan deal, you know, they don't really need to keep Alvarez. They, you know, most likely, I'm thinking either if they see something good about Fabio Alvarez, they might think about signing him, and he could be like a depth piece for Roman Alessandrini. Or if they feel like he's a decent kind of player, but he's not Roman Alessandrini, they can always send him back and decided to not buy him off of a loan. I'm not quite sure if this loan has a option to buy offer, but you know, you get what I mean. The fact that this is just a temporary replacement for Roman Alessandrini until September's. But yeah, that is pretty much it for all the transfer overview in the last 4 days. And since right now it is officially 9:59 p.m., which you know what that means. It's 11:59 p.m. Central Time, which means that this is now officially this is the deadline of the MLS transfer window, and I am just gonna quickly go on MLSsoccer.com right now to just check to see if there is any more deadline that has happened, because you know, as of now the window should be shut, and looks like the answer is no, because it looks like the last one was about Justin Meram is on the move again. So basically there's going to be no more move after this. I mean, there will still be rumor of teams potentially acquiring another players as we head into the summer transfer window. But yeah, that is pretty much it in terms of the primary transfer window done and dusted. And let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the primary transfer window? What kind of move really surprised you, and who exactly kind of won this primary transfer window? But that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I will see you guys next time.